romance, and adventure. A bi-coastal celebration with friends of Julia and Alan, New Life. This wonderful union of Julia and Alan has transpired so quickly that some of you may not know how we got here.
It wasn't quick enough as far as
Of course. The stories of love, whether human or divine or both, tend to be like that. The tale of lovers contains mysteries beyond the questioning mind. We can only share in the love and perhaps catch a few images of the path that led to this moment.
In the beginning, there were days and nights of splendor. Palm trees, sand, and sea, punctuated by collaborative work and intimacy with one's teacher, Mershida Connor. Julia and Alan met down by the shore at Yukon Dunes in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. In the mid-1930s, a favorite character of Alan's, the legendary architect Philip Johnson, as a young man, had a preliminary hand in the venture of creating an Art Deco house in the then little-known outpost in the south called Myrtle Beach. Sitting just above this beach with oceanic views, the home carries the flavor of a ship embarking on new journeys. It was here in 1952 that Meher Baba, their Lord of Hearts, returned for recuperation after his auto accident in Oklahoma. In this house of healing, Meher Baba worked on the charter that created Sufism Reoriented, the American School of Spiritual Studies, without which none of us would be participating today. Both Julia and Alan were scheduled to go to Yukon Dunes the last week of January 2013. But something strange happened just before they went. As Alan puts it,
I was in the winter entrance at Manchester House in Washington. We call it the winter entrance of all seasons. It's the way I've come into the house for years and years, and where we keep our shoes while we're in the center. Well, that day, like any other day, thousands upon thousands of times, I was reaching for my shoes when I noticed a pink slip of paper therein. It said, "Call Julia Bonacich." It had a phone number on it. I wondered, why the paper? Why the number? And who was Julia Bonacich? I simply removed the paper and thought no more about it.
well, on January 26, 2013, Julia arrived at Yukon Dunes and was assigned to stay next door at Farr House. Here, too, she was engaging in our time-honored custom of removing shoes before entering.
Before I could even take off my shoes, some very sweet Sufi lady companions were compassionately hugging and consoling me over the recent losses in my life. And as I removed my shoes, tears streamed down my face.
Then the door opened. Enter Alan. Confronting a stranger while in tears, Julia was almost apologetic.
I'm so sorry. I just lost my husband and
Now, and I help people with grieving and suffering.
by the way, my name is Julia Bonacich.
Julia Bonacich. That name sounds familiar.
By the way, when Alan returned, somehow that piece of pink paper, it was back in his shoes. He never found out where it came from, but by then, it didn't matter.
That week at Yukon Dunes, we kept finding ourselves near each other.
As we cooked and cleaned and talked, we found that we had a lot to share with each other.
I could talk so easily to Alan. I really enjoyed his way of being.
And Julia was so present. The past and the future rolled away like the waves on the ocean. The world outside the workshop seemed to vanish.
Each time we met, there seemed to be a special atmosphere around us.
Of course, while work continues, workshops draw to a close. And on February 1st, the departure day, Alan offered to call Julia on her return to California. A connection had been made, and another page was written in the story of Yukon Dunes.
In the days and weeks and months that followed, Alan and Julia kept in touch by technology.
As a rule, when I'm doing grief counseling, I do not make the first call. I find it intrusive. But somehow, this time, I broke the rule. I made the first call, and we began a series of weekly calls.
Fortunately, they no longer meter long distance by the minute. Healing takes time, and I always felt better after each conversation. Alan helped me understand love and losses.
Over 9 months, the interval of birth, we also got to know one another better. Our relationship had begun on a deep level, and it only deepened from there.
That's all great. Hey, babe, I don't care how deep you get. Eventually, it might be nice to see each other. Share a cup of coffee, go on a date. In November, I somewhat unknowingly helped this happen. My daughter, Mara May,
Yeah.
and her husband, Brian,
Yes,
her husband, were getting married here in the Bay Area. So naturally, I invited Alan. Our relationship with each other's kids, Ivana, and where's Ivana? Oh yeah, over there. And Rebecca goes way back. Alan and I have been connected in many ways. I met Alan when he came to his first Sufi meeting at Peg Andy's. That's who ran our Sufi group in Washington, D.C. way back then. Andy Muir, who worked for NASA, and his wife Peggy, who managed a hairstyling salon. It just happened to be the week before Jenny, my first wife, and I got married. So of course I invited him to that, and he came. When Russell and I were getting to know each other through ballroom dancing, Alan kindly put his basement at our disposal. And look what happened. So maybe I owed him one. So while he came out for Mara May's festivities, something else was going on.
It was 1 week after the Francis Lee School's event in Oakland that Alan came out here. I was working that week, so I wasn't quite sure how we were going to have time together.
I spent an evening with Julia just before I went to Yosemite for the wedding activities. We were clearly on a friendship basis. Then, after the festivities, Julia invited me to speak at the Family to Family program at an organization where Julia is very involved, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, Contra Costa chapter. Over the next few days, reluctances fell away, and we quickly realized that we had fallen, perhaps risen in love.
Julia and Alan clearly realized that something was indeed happening. The next month, Julia came to the East Coast, where she and Alan had each begun their lives. Here they had a chance to enter into each other's spiritual roots.
In taking Julia to his friends and family on the East Coast, Alan revisited a time when he and Murshid Jim, who was the director of Sufism at that time, or later in that time, but when he and Murshid Jim were colleagues.
I came to the University of Maryland Medical School in Baltimore in the fall of 1970. I found myself right down the hall from Dr. Mackay. I was in neurophysiology, and Dr. Mackay, Jim, taught psychotherapy to psychiatrists. I really felt more at home in his department, so I would often mosey down there often.
At the time, Alan thought that Jim was pretty much like the other people in the department.
That is, until my wife and I saw an article in the Baltimore paper. There was a very debonair Jim, wearing a striking ascot, inviting people to see a home he had remodeled in the Federal Hill neighborhood. The way he designed spaces in the confines of a very thin townhome was amazing. I had never known in someone who looked at interiors the way he did.
Then, on October 27, 1974, Jim came to Alan's 33 1/3 birthday party. The guests included Alan's sister, Norma, who is here today, and Jim entered in a dashing leather jacket, which he tossed on a chair and joined the fun. At one point, Alan found himself standing next to Jim by a bookcase. Jim said, "I am a Sufi."
I wasn't exactly sure what that meant. In fact, I wasn't sure at all what it meant. Shortly thereafter, we went to our other home on the Isle of Majorca, just off of Spain. There, we met the Idris Shah Sufis. They certainly didn't wear dashing jackets, and their homes didn't seem to have exquisite designs. So, I still didn't know what Sufi meant.
Of course, at the least, it is a lifetime journey to know what being a Sufi is. But the journey of 1,000 lifetimes begins with a single step. Along those lines, Jim invited Alan to join one of his groups. And after some time, Jim began putting out books of Meher Baba's for people to take home and read. And a while later, Jim asked Alan and his wife to join Meher Baba's Sufism, which had taken birth at Yupon Dunes.
Jim encouraged us to leave Baltimore. First, to consider living on a farm near Duncannon, Pennsylvania, then Washington, D.C. It would be in Washington that my daughters, Ivana and Rebecca, would grow up before heading to homes around the world. Ivana and Roberto and family live in Mexico City, where she works for the Ford Foundation on economic and social protection issues for Mexico and Central America. Rebecca is a health officer for USAID, which led to her meeting her husband, Boyan. So good to see you both here. And Washington would be my home. That is, between trips to Italy and France.
So it was until a week and a half ago, when Alan left the Washington area for California. The consensus inside the Beltway is that he'll do just fine out here. After all, California's Mediterranean climate is like Italy.
Isn't it rich? Now you're up here, Alan, at last on the ground, walking on air. You're settling down. It will be bliss. We all approve. Starting a new life right here, you're in the groove. So jump up and down. Go out on the town. Just when you stopped looking around, wondering what's next in your life, and look what you've found. A life full of service and love and giving your best. No shoveling snow. You've gone way out west. Mayhair will guide you to success. Now you're in California, a new address. So let's settle down. It's all over town. Each day will be blessed.
What is it then between us? What is the count, or the scores, or the hundreds of years between us? Whatever it is, it avails not. Distance avails not, and place avails not. I too lived. Brooklyn of ample hills was mine. So wrote Walt Whitman of the Brooklyn Ferry. Whitman had spent a difficult childhood in Brooklyn, leaving at the age of 16 to seek his fortune across the river in Manhattan. Julia Zaworski, too, spent a difficult childhood in Brooklyn. Now, this was the Brooklyn before Ivana, this was Brooklyn before the Nets, this was Brooklyn before gentrification. She left at the age of 14, seeking her fortune further north in the Hudson River Valley. She ended up in Rokeby, a 43-room mansion on the 450-acre estate of the Astor Livingston family, held by the Aldriches, the 10th generation heirs. The setting for Julia's life had gone from the honeymooners to Downton Abbey.
The Aldriches became my second family. I acquired a job there helping out with the household and soon became very close to them. And to me, they seemed and felt more like my real family. I spent 4+ happy years in their mansion. The doors of that house have always been open to me ever since. So it was only natural that I would take Alan to visit there.
As Julie went through her teens in the nurturing environment of Rokeby, the 1960s were getting into full sway. The new rhythms captured Julia, who loves, loves, loves to dance.
Yes.
In the evening, she'd put on her dancing clothes and she'd run barefoot to the local club, Magdal.
Nearby was Bard College at Annandale-on-Hudson, which has always been a great rock scene. Later on, it would be Steely Dan and the Beastie Boys, but in the mid-1960s, it was the Disciples with Hank Midland.
And now we're going to stop in the name of love because it's Hank's birthday. We pick up the Disciples with the pink labels on their instrument cases. We're going to sing Happy Birthday to this disciple.
Birthday to you.
that actually was a pretty good place to break, because we're on the verge of something huge in Julia's life. In addition to Hank, at the club, Julia had become friends with Dick Duman. Dick Duman, who was frequenting the nearby Millbrook estate, where two Harvard professors, Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, were experimenting with hallucinogenic drugs. In August of 1964, Leary, Alpert, and a 24-year-old grad student, Alan Cohen, went at invitation to hear a Mayor Baba follower, Darwin Shaw, speak at Woodstock. Now, this was Woodstock before Woodstock was Woodstock. Now, they naturally didn't realize the significance that Mayor Baba had himself, indirectly, via the Winterfelds in New York, asked Darwin to speak at the gathering. But their experiences were clearly out of the ordinary. Feeling very good vibes, Leary wondered what this very straight-looking traffic engineer in the checkered sport coat was on. Alan Cohen became so excited that he ripped off a pamphlet. And Leary told Dick about Mayor Baba, who then told Julia.
He told me that Mayor Baba was a perfect master. That is, someone who had reached the goal of life and returned to share his knowledge. He gave Mayor Baba's discourse to me on, you guessed it, the sanctification of married life, which impressed me greatly, and it still does.
The links set in motion by that day at Woodstock were far-reaching. Dick told Joan Ruby, who later told Hank Mantoundon, who told his professor, Dr. James S.B. Cotton.
At the age of 18, Julia left Rokeby House and headed west. Then, in 1968, at Mercer Deuce's request, Julia traveled back from the West Coast to show her family, an adopted family, her new daughter, Mary. In those days, Rokeby had many visitors and guests, including a Bulgarian couple, Boris and Ganka Georgiev, who had been befriended by Ricky Aldrich and who lived on the 3rd floor. During her short visit, Julia was asked by Boris to tell him everything she could about Mayor Baba.
I had only 20 minutes and was unaccustomed to talking about Baba, but I tried to tell him as much and as best I could.
Then, after Julia left, on November 26, 1968, Rokeby had its most distinguished visitor ever, far eclipsing the Hudson Valley aristocracy. In the last family letter written while Mayor Baba was physically alive, Mani Irani, his sister, tells the story.
In December, Baba received a letter from a man in the USA who addressed the cover of the letter so incorrectly that it's a marvel it reached us. Beginning the letter with,
Excuse my ignorance. I do not know how to address you properly.
he writes on,
I am sure that you know about me, that what I will tell you is not new for you. I have been in the USA since 1967. I was born in Bulgaria, where for 23 years I experienced all the horrors and difficulties that people who are characterized as enemies of the state experience. I was accused of having taken part in sabotage. Later it was proved that I was innocent, but that did not help the situation. I first quite tangibly observed help from invisible helpers when escaping. They conducted me safely across the frontier in daytime at 2:30 on a bright sunny day through wire entanglements among mines and heavily armed guards.
He then details health and financial challenges leading up to a miracle or vision.
I was awakened by a strange noise. The next moment, the room was filled with a blinding light, in the center of which I saw a completely normal human being, which pronounced in pure Bulgarian,
Do not fear. Do you recognize me?
"Yes, you are Mayor Baba."
The human figure, with a kind glance and meek words, continued.
Believe firmly. I shall help you.
I now already believe deeply that you will help me. I will joyfully wait to receive your instructions. My greatest hope, if I can, is to be of service to you.
And so, another love is born from the womb of suffering into a life of his love. In replying to his letter, Ali K. Irani conveyed this from beloved Baba. Meher Baba wants you to know that your sufferings have brought you to him. He says that he has been with you in your dark hours and will continue to be with you and help you if you hold firmly to him.
Thus it has been with Julia and Alan. Suffering brought them together at Yukon Dunes. It has led them to this new life and the joy we feel today.
Petite and trim and cute and lovely, the girl from Pleasant Hill goes walking on the sandy beach at Yukon Dunes. When she came, her heart was saddened, but soon her heart became so gladdened to share her thoughts with him each afternoon. Oh, they were always together, talking and laughing whenever. She didn't know 'twas forever, till one day when he said, "Marry me," she looked right at him, yes sir. Petite and trim and cute and lovely, she was in the right place at the right time. Lucky for him, lucky for her, lucky for both. Happy New Grove.
The poet Francis Brabazon has written, "Marriage is both a settled way of life and a journey to unknown places based upon honesty of motive and mutuality of consideration. It is an exercise in oneness, the blessedness of doing things together within the context of the whole human endeavor." As part of that human endeavor, thank you for bringing us together today and sharing in this joy. Laura Peeper-Gerdes will now present a toast that sums up this lovely occasion.
Did warn him not to, this was coming. Celebrating their heart's awakening. Let's begin at Yukon Dunes, where everything is possible. They met by chance in this paradise of our beloved mare, surrounded by oceanic love, where hearts were cleansed with care. He saw her name, she heard his voice. Voila, east meets west. Discovering in each other love at its very best, the good fortune of the master's touch, and a moment of reflection, fused these two sparkling hearts as one in absolute perfection. Love struck them with a lightning bolt that burned the past away. Their hearts awakened in a flash on this new life holiday. They pondered one another's uniqueness now and then. They knew each other instantly in this bubble of Zen. So much in common these two share in work, in play and life. Why not join their lives as one, as husband and as wife? Love's currents swept with lightning speed, unmercifully abrupt. They wondered with amusement, could we have been set up? This love so close and personal, so pure, embracing all, this new life union, fun and light, let's just have a ball. Humor, glorious humor, laughter, fun and joy, brilliant, mindful sharing was their magical convoy. The gypsy and the prince, the warrior and the king, formed a band of pure delight, causing all our hearts to sing. In his eyes, her beauty. In his eyes, in her eyes, his charms, formed an unchained melody, encircled in their arms. Trust grew in leaps and bounds. All secrets were revealed. What was once left unspoken became no longer sealed. Both knowing that their journey is all in Baba's hands. Her heart sang, yes I can, when he crooned, I'm your man. Proposals on the phone while both were on the run. Julia and Ellen, they're in this grand game for fun. We toast these two lovebirds for anchoring the light of this new oceanic love that's purely a delight. We toast their all-inclusiveness that touches every heart and send them off with fervor on this passionate new start. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Bravo. Bravo.
Alicia wrote those wonderful songs.
Oh, the words. Oh, that was awesome.
Would you all join me in the toast? I am Croatian, actually. And the Croats have a toast. The words are živio, Z-H-I-V-O, life, live life. But it has to be done with the real flourish.
Živio.
So would you join me in a toast to Julia and Alan at the count of 3? 1, 2, oh, remember the flourish. 1, 2, 3.
Živio!
Is there a Macedonian?
Is there a Macedonian in the house?
Zdravia.
L'chaim. Zdravia.
So, what do you think?
Hey! All right.
Oh, it's such a beautiful job. It's a beautiful, beautiful offering.
Congratulations.
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 So, we're gonna have dessert.
Yeah.
Wedding cake, it matches my dress. Have you all been having a good time? Yeah. Wonderful. Did you see the flowers? This woman's responsible for the flowers.